Welcome to the channel. In this video we're going to have a look through the Sisters of Battle Beta Codex. So Sisters players will know that their codex and their new miniature range is coming out at some point in 2019, but in the meantime the Beta Codex has been released in chapter approved 2018 edition. So I'm not going to mess around, let's dive straight in there. There are 6 orders: Valorious Heart, Our Martyred Lady, Ebon Chalice, Argent Shroud, Bloody Rose and Sacred Rose. And there are a number of units found in the Codex and listed below that can be included in an Adepta Sororitas detachment without preventing other units in that detachment from gaining an order conviction. So Celestine, Gemini Superior, Hospitaller, Dialogus, Penitent Engines, Ministorum Priest, and Ecclesiarchy Battle Conclave models. You can bring these other things, the main thing being Celestine. You can bring these other things in your detachment and it doesn't prevent your detachment from gaining the order special rules. So let's have a quick look at the orders. Valorious Heart. Each time a model with this conviction loses a wound, roll a d6, and on a 6 they don't lose it. Our Martyred Lady. Each time a unit with this conviction from your army is destroyed, you gain a faith point. Ebon Chalice. Add 1 to the results of tests of faith for units with this conviction. Argent Shroud. Each time an enemy unit is destroyed by a unit with this conviction, roll a d6, and on a 4-up you gain a faith point. Bloody Rose. Add 1 to the strength and attacks characteristics of a model with this conviction during any turn they made a charge, was charged, or performed a heroic intervention. So those are going to be your Seraphim squads with that one, and your Penitent Engines. Sacred Rose. A unit with this conviction can never lose more than a single model as the result of a failed morale test. In addition, they fire overwatches on 5 or 6, unmodified hit rolls of 5 or 6. Melters, anyone? Sisters also have the Strength of Faith ability, which is basically objective secured. Now, we mentioned faith points there quite a few times, so let's go back and have a look at faith points. If you bring a Sisters order, you start the battle with 3 faith points, and you get an additional faith point for every 10 models with this ability in your army. So models with the Acts of Faith ability, well, those are basically all the Sisters, Dominion squads, Retributor squads, Seraphim squads, things like that. Not vehicles or exorcists or Ministorum priests. But any Sister, you get 10 models, you add a faith point. So you start off with 3 and you bring 30 Sisters of various model types. Then you're going to get another 3, which will give you 6 faith points. Now, to attempt an act of faith, you select a unit in your army that has an Acts of Faith ability. You spend a point and then you roll a dice. If the result of the dice roll is less than the Act of Faith value, nothing happens. If the result of the dice roll is equal or more to the Act of Faith value, then the test is successful. Each of the Acts of Faith can only be attempted once per battle round. So, to summarize, you're going to have 6, 7 faith points. You're going to spend 1 every time you want to use an act of faith, and then you need to roll a dice, and you could only do each act of faith once per battle round. And here are the acts of faith. So Hand of the Emperor, you need a 4 or more to cast. To start your movement phase, add 3 inches to the selected move characteristic until the end of that phase. Now let's not forget, Celestine has got the Acts of Faith ability and she moves 12. So if you pass this one off on Celestine, she's moving 15 inches. Spirit of the Martyr, this is a 3-up. You use this Act of Faith at the start of your movement phase, and if successful, 1 model in the selected unit regains D3 wounds. Or if there are no wounded models in the unit but someone's dead, then you can set that model back up on the battle grid with 1 wound. Again, vehicles don't have Acts of Faith, but if you want to put D3 wounds back on Celestine or D3 wounds back on your Canoness, this is the way to do it. Aegis of the Emperor, devotion value of a 3+. Use this Act of Faith at the start of your opponent's psychic phase, and if successful, then until the end of that phase, roll a d6 each time the selected unit suffers a mortal wound, and on a 4+, that mortal wound is ignored. So it's a bit like Shield of Contempt or Armor of Contempt that Space Marines have. Basically a 4-up, you can ignore mortal wounds. You've got to pass the Act of Faith as well. Divine Guidance, 4+ to cast this one, a 4+. Use at the start of your shooting phase. Add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made with this unit's range weapons until the end of the phase. So if you want your melt guns to be hitting on 2s, then Divine Guidance, this is the one for you. The Passion. The Passion has got a devotion value of 5+, so only on a 5 or 6. So you spend your faith point, you need a roll of 5 or 6. Use this act of faith at the start of your fight phase. If successful, the selected unit can be chosen to fight twice that phase. And then the last one is called Light of the Emperor. You need a 3+ to cast this one. Use this act of faith at the start of your morale phase. If successful, the selected unit automatically passes morale tests that phase. So as you can see, there's things in the movement phase, there's things in the shooting phase, there's a thing in the fight phase, so you can fight twice, and something in the morale phase. So technically you could have 5 or 6 acts of faith points and burn through all of them in turn 1. But I like them because they feel to me almost like stratagems, free stratagems that you can use so long as you pass the dice roll. But that's what acts of faith are in the beta rules. Sisters also have Shield of Faith, which is their 6+ invulnerable save. I think they had that before. They have that as just a basic ability. But Shield of Faith also has the ability to deny psychic powers. Any unit with the Shield of Faith rule can deny a psychic power in the same manner as a Psyker, but only rolls 1d6 when attempting to deny the witch, not 2d6. So if your opponent has cast a psychic power on an 8 or a 9, there's no chance of denying it. But if they've done a smite on a 5+ and they've rolled a 5, then you've got a 1/3 chance of blocking that psychic power. Now let's go back to the orders. So, Our Martyred Lady, you gain a faith point every time a unit from your army is destroyed. An Argent Shroud, you gain a faith point on a 4+ every time you destroy an enemy unit. So you destroy an enemy unit, roll a dice, and on a 4+, you get a faith point. So there's 2 ways of recovering faith points and doing more acts of faith. And remember the Ebon Chalice as well, they add 1 to the results of tests of faiths. For units with this conviction. So all those devotion values I said, those casting values I said on 4s and 3s and 3s and 5s, well, they do it on +1. That ability to fight twice, that'll be a 4+ instead of a 5+. Saint Celestine does not have the order keyword, so she cannot benefit from the orders, but as mentioned at the very start, she doesn't prevent you from taking an order in a battlefield detachment anyway. She's 160 points, Saint Celestine, and when she dies she gets up on a 2, and when she gets back up she gets up with full wounds. So she's got 6 wounds, 2+ save, 4+ invulnerable save, and when she finally dies she gets back up again on a 2 with all her wounds, as close as possible to her previous position and more than 1 inch away from an enemy model. So I think beforehand you could drop her in anywhere on the battle grid, but now she's got to get up where she went down. The Ardent Blade is +4 strength, so she's up to strength 7 at -3 AP, 2 damage each when she smacks people with her 6 attacks. She still has her Healing Tears abilities, so she can restore all lost wounds to a Gemini superior that's with her, or she could pick one of them back up again and put her back on the battle grid again if they're dead. But the ability to move twice, I think she had an ability where she could move and then move again and then smack you in turn 1. I can't see that one in here. The only way that she's going to be moving forward very, very quickly is by using that Acts of Faith ability, Hand of the Emperor, which is a 50-50 chance to give her +3 inches to her movement. But Healing Tears, picking up Gemini Superior, is here. Saintly Blessings, I think this is new. The invulnerable save for friendly Adepta Sororitas units that they receive from Shield of Faith. Basically, the sisters have a 6+ invulnerable save for Shield of Faith. Well, it's improved by 1 while they're within 6 inches of Celestine. And it's improved by 2 instead if it is a Gemini Superior unit. Basically, the Gemini Superior jumping around with her of a 4-up invulnerable save, and any sisters within 6 inches of her have a 5-up invulnerable save. Celestine is a HQ. Your other HQ choices are Canoness, Uriah Jacus, Missionaries, and that's it. A Canoness has a 4-up invulnerable save, and you can re-roll hit rolls of 1 for friendly order units while they're within 6 inches of this model. And remember, there's an Act of Faith which allows you to hit on 2s. So using that Act of Faith so you can hit on 2s, re-rolling 1s next to a Canoness, and that's going to be particularly frightening, particularly when Battle Sisters squads can take 2 melters in every squad. So 2 melters hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s. And a 5-man Sisters squad with 2 melters is 73 points. So does that mean a Rhino Rush list is in here? Does that mean if you have 6 Rhinos with 6 times 5 sisters in it all rushing forward with, you're going to be slagging a lot of vehicles and monsters hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s with melters, so long as you pull off that Act of Faith ability, which is a 4-up, by the way. Unless you're the Ebon Chalice, which is a 3-up. So that's the Canoness. Uriah Jacob. Now, he's a missionary, so he doesn't have Acts of Faith, but he has got Shield of Faith, and he has got Zealot. Zealot is another rule which pops up in this book from time to time, and it is re-roll failed hit rolls when you charge, was charged, or performed a heroic intervention. Uriah buffs leadership, and he helps prevent people from fleeing, and you can add 1 to attacks characteristics for any Adeptus Ministorum infantry and Astra Militarum infantry while they're within 6 inches of any friendly priest. And of course you have missionaries, which is a cheaper version of Uriah Jacobus, which hasn't got the Banner of Sanctity, hasn't got the +1 to the leadership. Battle Sister squads are the only troops. You can load them up as before, and you can take a Simulacrum Imperialis, which adds 1 to the results of tests of faith for a unit while they include a model with this Simularum Imperialis. So all those tests of faith that I was talking about, they've all become 1 easier on Sisters of Battle squads. They're not the only unit that can take this. Celestine squads can take them, Dominion squads can take them, and Retributor squads can take them as well, making your Acts of Faith a bit easier. Then we have the Gemini Superior, which are life wards to Celestine. They're in the elite squad, slot. Then you have Repentia squads, Mistress of Repentance, Celestine squads, Preachers, Hospitaliers, Dialogus, Arco-Flagellants, Crusaders, Death Cult Assassins, and those are your elite slots. You'll notice most of those are not sisters and were found in the Agents of the Imperium book or in the Inquisition book. Flagellants, Death Cult Assassins, Crusaders don't take up any slots at all so long as you bring a Ministorum Priest. Then after that we have the fast attack slots, which are Seraphims and Dominions. It's interesting that Seraphim have Angelic Visage, so improve the invulnerable save this unit receives from Shield of Faith by 1 to a maximum of 3+. Maximum of 3+. The reason why that is because if Celestine's with them, then they'll have a 4-up invulnerable save. Angelic Visage will give them a +1, Celestine will give them a +1, so suddenly a Seraphim bomb with Celestine have got a 4-up invulnerable save. It says to a maximum of 3-up, so you can guess there's some stratagems out there that will give you Seraphims a 3-up invulnerable save as well. And then in the heavy slots we have Exorcists, Retributors, Penitent Engines. The missile launcher for the Exorcist hasn't changed. It's still strength 8 -4, d6 damage a time, and d6 shots. Very, very random. Penitent Engines have got the Zealot rule, so they're going to be re-rolling to hit with their 4 attacks when they go charging in there. They're also Berserk Killing Machines with a 5-up Feel No Pain. But at over 100 points each with their 2 heavy flamers, then I wonder if we're ever going to see them, which is a shame because they're such iconic units. Then in the dedicated support slots, we have the Rhinos and the Immolators. I do particularly like the Immolators. The Immolation Flamer being 12-inch range assault 2d6. Heavy Flamer, 12 inches is just frightening. And the vehicles do have the Shield of Faith ability, so I guess if they're within range of Celestine, then you can buff it too. Then we go on to the points values. Then it goes on to the bit that I talked about earlier on with the orders. And then you have 2 pages of stratagems for now. One of the stratagems allows you to get extra relics. One of the other stratagems costs 3 command points, and all the rest of them cost only 1 command point. The one that costs 3 command points is this one. It's called Vessel of the Emperor's Will. Basically, when you pass an act of faith, when you make it a successful test of faith for a character, the act of faith ability used on that character affects all friendly sisters within 6 inches of that character, and it doesn't cost any additional faith points, and no additional tests of faith are required. So say, for example, you have a Canoness, which allows you to reroll hit rolls of 1, and she pulls off the ability which is +1 to hit. Now all of a sudden everyone within 6 inches of her are rerolling hit rolls of 1 and +1 to hit, but it does cost 3 command points. Right, I said all the other ones cost 1 command point allied. One of them costs 2 command points, but it's for Arcoflagellants, so we're not going to see it anyway. So let's go on to the 1 command point stratagems. Seraphim Squad, Burning Descent. Use this stratagem after a Seraphim Squad unit from your army is set up on the battlefield using its Sky Strike ability. You can immediately shoot with that unit as if it were your shooting phase. And for those attacks, the range of this unit's hand flamers is increased to 12 inches. This does not prevent it from shooting again in the following shooting phase. Then there's a stratagem that allows you to reroll failed wounds versus psychers. There's one for Repentia squads, which allows you to do mortal wounds after you lose models. Then there's Blessed Bolts. Use this stratagem before an infantry unit from your army shoots until the end of the phase. Change the AP characteristics of Storm Bolters that the models in that unit are armed with to -2, and their damage characteristic to 2. You can give 2 Storm Bolters to sister squads, but you're not going to do that because you're going to can give them melters, and you're going to give them melters. But that's nice. Damage 2, -2 Storm Bolters. Faith and Fury. Use this stratagem after a successful test of faith roll is made. You can re-roll wound rolls of 1 for that unit until the end of the phase. So not only have you buffed a unit because you've made it move or shoot or fight, but that unit can also re-roll wound rolls of 1 for the end of the phase as well, for 1 command point. Right, for a command point, you can use this stratagem before the battle. So basically you can do this on multiple units if you want to, and you can upgrade the Simulacrum Imperialis to a Sacred Banner. And remember, that's the thing that you can put on your Sisters squad, your Celestine squad, your Dominion squad, your Retributor squad, which adds 1 to the test of faith results for a unit with a model with this thing in it. Well, you can upgrade it, and for 1 command point once per battle, you can +1 to the model's invulnerable save it receives from the Shield of Faith ability to a maximum of 3+. So we can see some of the combinations that GW are trying to get us to think of here. Because Shield of Faith 6 up invulnerable save, Celestine giving you another +1, the Sacred Banner of the Order Militant, paying a command point to upgrade the Imperialis at the start of the game to give you another +1, but only once per battle. And remember, Shield of Faith is an invulnerable save. It isn't against shooting attacks, it's just a flat out invulnerable save. These things could be getting stomped on by knights and maybe surviving. Right, 1 command point, Rally the Faithful. Use the stratagem when an Adepta Sororitas unit from your army fails a morale test, half the number of models that flee, rounding down. Purity of Faith. Use the stratagem when an enemy psyker manifests a psychic power within 24 inches. On a 4-up, that psychic power is resisted and its effects are negated. Martyrdom. This is a nice fluffy one, I like it. For 1 command point, pick a character that just died. You immediately gain D3 faith points, and if it was your Warlord, you gain 3 faith points. Martyrdom, like it. Here's another nice fluffy one. Sacred Rites. Spend 1 command point, gain 1 faith point. Groovy. Simple, I like it. That stratagem works at the start of your movement phase, But that's quite nice at the start of every movement phase. If you've got, if you'd rather be spending faith points instead of stratagem points, you can convert them. It's very, very nice. Then the last one is called Holy Trinity. 1 command point. Pick a sister's unit and fire everything from that unit at 1 enemy unit. And so long as the sister's unit has at least 1 bolt gun, 1 flamer, and 1 melter weapon in range. So you've got a mixed unit with at least a bolt gun, flamer, melter weapon in range, and you target everything at an enemy unit, then you get +1 to your wound rolls, called Holy Trinity. That's a nice fluffy one as well, firing everything you've got at 1 unit. The Holy Trinity of weapons, the bolt gun, the flamer, the melter, getting +1 to wound. That could be quite devastating as well. Right, Warlord traits. Celestine has Beacon of Faith. Basically at the start of every single one of your turn, you roll a dice, and on a 4+ you gain a faith point, so long as they're on the battlefield. So that's another way of gaining faith points. And Uriah Jacobus has Righteous Rage Warlord trait, which is you can re-roll failed charge rolls for this Warlord. In addition, if this Warlord made a charge move, was charged, or performed a heroic intervention, you can re-roll failed wound rolls made for it until the end of the fight phase. The other 4 are Inspiring Orator. You can re-roll failed morale tests for friendly order units while they're within 6 inches of this Warlord. And in addition, they can use that character's leadership trait. Basically, it's the same as a chaplain in the Space Marines book. Executioner of Heretics. Subtract 1 from the leadership characteristic of any enemy units while they're within 6 inches. Indomitable Belief. The invulnerable save for friendly units that friendly units receive from the Shield of Faith ability is improved to 5+ while they're within 6 inches of this Warlord. So you could have Celestine giving out that +1 to invulnerable saves, giving your sisters a 5+, and make someone else your Warlord, and they'll be given out a 5+ invulnerable save within 6 inches as well. And then Pure of Will. Your Warlord can attempt to deny 1 additional psychic power in each enemy psychic phase as described in Shield of Faith. In addition, the enemy psychers must subtract 1 from their psychic tests whilst they're within 12 inches of your Warlord. So the Warlord trait that you're going to be getting probably is Beacon of Faith, which is the one that Celestine has, and on a 4+, you gain a faith point at the start of every turn so long as they're on the battle grid. Then we have 6 relics, and 2 of them, one is a blade, a power sword, and one of them is a pistol. That's a pistol 3, strength 5, -1, 2 damage. The blade is +2 strength, -3, 3 damage. And then you've got 4 other things that are not weapons. The Book of St. Lucius is increase the range of the bearer's aura abilities by 3 inches. The Brazier of the Eternal Flame is roll 2d6 instead of d6 for deny the witch tests taken by friendly order units using the Shield of Faith ability while they're within 6 inches of the bearer. So any sisters units within 6 inches of the bearer there can do 2d6 deny the witch tests. So that's multiple units denying the witch on 2d6. That one's pretty good. But situational, say you're going up against Tau or Necrons, you're not going to use it. Litanies of Faith, roll a d6 each time you successfully pass a test of faith for a friendly Sororitas sisters unit whilst within 6 inches of the bearer. And on a 5+, the faith point used to attempt that act of faith is immediately refunded. So there's your automatic relic there. Anyone within 6 inches of her, you get your faith points back on a 5+. And then we have the Mantle of Ophelia for a canoness only, and she has a 3-up invulnerable save. And that's it, that's what's in the book. I didn't go into all the details for all the units. We can see some changes that are happening to some of the units. We can see some of the overlapping buffs that GW are thinking of in the future. What do you think about the new Acts of Faith mechanic? Better? Worse? More streamlined, it feels to me. Celestine is an absolute beast. She's not going to be moving twice and smacking things again, but getting up on full wounds rather than d6, I think it was beforehand. Just looking through the book, haven't looked at the points yet to see how competitive it is, but looking through the book and having spoken to Ian from Imperium Gaming quite a few times about Sisters, they were already pretty good. Quite underrated, but already pretty good. An army that has lots and lots of flamers and melters in it. An army that hits on 3s and can now hit on 2s and re-roll 1s. They were already pretty good. I think there's some builds in here, and I'll be very interested to see where Games Workshop go with Battle Sisters in the future. Anyway, that's it for this review / overview. Thank you to Games Workshop for sending Chapter Approved 2018 through to me. Thank you everyone for listening. Happy wargaming.